Welcome. Today is July 15th, 2020. You are listening to the greatest podcast in the history of civilization, Counterculture, with Aaron Lujan. And today we will be covering the top news stories of the day, the news that the corporate media should be providing you had they been doing their job, but they're not. So it will require short brown guys to fill the void. Thank you for joining me, you guys. I appreciate your time and your support. I'm going to be running through what I believe are the most important news stories of the day. Today, July 15th, and it is a Wednesday. We're going to get things started with a bombshell report being reported out of naturalnews.com. COVID-19 infection rate may be 440% higher among children who received flu shots, while health authorities madly push more shots for the coming flu season. So there was a 2012 study published in the Journal of Clinical Infectious Diseases titled Increased Risk of Non-Influenza Respiratory Virus Infections Associated with Receipt of Inactivated Influenza Vaccine. Man, that's a mouthful. Essentially, the bottom line with the study is that if children receive the flu shot, they are more susceptible to other respiratory infections. The study also found no difference in the risk of seasonal influenza infections between those children who were vaccinated versus those who were not. So in other words, not only is the whole point of getting your kid a flu shot pointless because there's still no difference between those vaccinated and those unvaccinated, but it would save more lives if we avoided administering flu shots this year. Duh. Remember the 90s? Duh. Everybody knows it, duh. We got to bring duh back. COVID con. The New American is reporting doctor says virus is dying, but the media kept it alive. So you're probably hearing a lot of corporate media hyperventilate about, oh, there's a spike in COVID cases. There's massive increases. We got to shut down. Well, the spikes are mainly due to ramped up testing. You're going to test more, you're going to detect more. But why it's not so scary is the article pointed out that ventilator and intensive care units are not seeing an increase in use. There's no huge increase in ICU patients, nor is there a huge increase in ventilators. So even though there's a spike, that could be viewed upon as a positive development because increased infection without a rising mortality rate actually means the virus is weakening and there's herd immunity perhaps growing. Texas had in late May started recording probable Wuhan virus cases as actual ones. So amongst the other things that you guys hear me rant about every night about COVID, the COVID scam, the additional point that the article made is that probable is now being recorded as actual. So we're just flat out lying. Government Slaves is reporting that Kroger stops giving customers change as nationwide coin shortage worsens. So I believe you guys, this whole, hey guys, we don't have any change, you're going to have to round things up and please use your debit card, is one of the early predecessors to a cashless society. They are priming us for a cashless society and ultimately the mark of the beast and RFID technology in the palm of our hand to be used as cash. We've seen that with Apple Pay, Samsung Pay. We're swiping our phones. We are not a far stretch from the mark. And the reason why I think it's all bull and it's not real is when you consider the fact that the Federal Reserve the last 2 weeks has been engaging in what they call quantitative easing, which is fancy, shiny shoe boy talk for printing money out of thin air and bailing out their homies on Wall Street. So if they could print out money out of thin air and produce billions or arguably trillions of funny money, why couldn't they just warm up the old currency machine and pump out a bunch of coins? No. They want to acclimate you into thinking that cash is bad, it's out the window, so that when they finally announce it, we'll already be warm to the idea. Speaking of billions of dollars, the Roman Catholic Church received between 1.4 billion and 3.5 billion in payroll protection loans. If you guys actually remember the purpose of PPP, I got PPP, yeah, you know me. Only my 90s affiliates understood that joke. Yeah, PPP was designed to support, help small businesses, not the Catholic Church, not Nancy Pelosi's husband's investment firm or law firm. The cash more than likely will be used to revamp the church's accounts hit hard by the sex abuse settlements. So PPP is getting handed out to the Catholic Church. Interesting. Instagram goes full-blown racist. Remember when in the old days, when racism used to be bad? I guess it's still bad. So it's not the old days. It's only bad if it's directed towards certain colors. So it's fair game to be racist towards white people, apparently, and the left. I'm sure if you have a UC Berkeley or Stanford degree, you could enlighten me on why only whites can be racist. But Instagram adds the mute white people button to GIF options via Giphy. So you can just mute white people. Can you imagine if there was a mute black people button? I guess this is kind of good news. I guess. Analysts are reporting box office earnings set to plunge 70% in 2020. Boo-hoo-hoo, Tinseltown. 70% of their money is going to get wiped out, according to sales research by MKM Partners. I'm not incredibly disappointed because Hollywood generally just promotes every form of degeneracy and anti-family message and anti-American message they can possibly conjure, which is the reason why I haven't frequented the movie theaters literally since the late 90s. Literally. My wife and I were just talking about this recently. When was the last time we actually walked into a movie theater? We couldn't remember. I can remember seeing Forrest Gump with my grandma, if that gives you an idea of my movie-going experience. Gab Trends, the great Andrew Torba. The rest of you are next. BLM mob raids Facebook page of mom killed after saying all lives matter. So I don't know if you remember, yesterday I reported that a young mother who was the mother of a 3-year-old boy, an adorable boy, was shot by Black Lives Matter protesters after an argument for saying all lives matter. It was a real Facebook debate, a real Facebook argument. Because, as I mentioned yesterday, it feels like you're going to get shot in every Facebook debate, which is the reason why I got off Facebook almost 2 years ago, I think it's been. And so they're not content with murdering you for saying all lives matter. They now want to harass the grieving family and say things like what Yemerzen Dova Romer said: Black lives matter. The rest of you are next. Josh Long said, can't feel bad for you when you used a racial slur and acted an effing fool. Ohio County implements hotline to report people not wearing masks. So apparently the state of Ohio has implemented a mandatory mask ordinance according to Mike DeWine's rules. Cuyahoga, ho, ho, ho. I just made that up. You guys like it? Cuyahoga County. Sounds like a county in Oklahoma, since half of Oklahoma is Indian. Cuyahoga County has taken Ohio Governor Mike DeWine's mask order seriously and is now asking people to Karen your neighbor and Karen your family members. The sheriff's department could reportedly investigate or potentially file charges if the violator of the mask order is the subject of repeated complaints. The health department will report your ass have repeat cases of not enforcing masks. So if you're a business and you're getting multiple cases, the health department will report you. Violating the governor's order is a second-degree misdemeanor, punishable by up to 90 days in jail and a $750 fine. Speaking of masks, apparently Ginsburg, our great Supreme Court justice has possible infection and has underwent a procedure. It's like Weekend at Bernie's with her, right? Remember Weekend at Bernie's? They're just dragging the body around. That's like Justice Ginsburg. I seriously question whether she's alive. I seriously do. Twitchy's reporting major errors discovered in Florida's reported COVID-19 test results. Update, more errors discovered. I thought this article was kind of funny because essentially the mistake was kind of like the mistakes I used to make when I was in school and in math class. They confused 9.4% testing positive, but they reported 98% were testing positive, and they being the Orlando Health Department. So shout out to Orlando Health. You guys really screwed this one up. And of course, it's such a memeable moment because you got a guy on Twitter saying, I'm not a math guy, but mistaking 9.4 for 98 is quite the math error. No, young man, it's not an error. It's just blatant lying, absolute corruption, complete disregard for the public, and a complete selling of the soul to the agenda. Just bowing your knee to anything that is politically correct and acceptable. Epoch Times is reporting that Philadelphia bans mass public events except for protests. So, no more backyard boogies, no more celly cell at the carne asada with the homies. It's basically over in Philly. So much for brotherly love. LifeNews.com is reporting liberal media ignores attacks on 5 American churches over the weekend. So the Catholic News Agency. How sad, right? We got to get our news from the Catholic News Agency. I went to Catholic school growing up. And the Catholic News Agency would report on like nuns announcing like reading programs at a like kindergarten school in Tennessee. Apparently now the Catholic News Agency has to fill the void for CNN and NBC because they're not covering the fact that on July 12th, mind you, it's July 15th. On July 12th, 4 Christian churches were attacked between Friday, July 10th and Sunday, July 12th. Our Lady's statue at Cathedral Prep School in Queens, New York on July 10th had the word idol in graffiti on the statue of the Virgin Mary. I almost said the Holy Virgin Mary because that's just my knee-jerk Catholic thing to say. I'm not a Catholic anymore, but another vandal set fire to a statue of the Holy Virgin Mary in St. Peter's Parish in Boston, Massachusetts on Saturday, July 11th. A 24-year-old suspect rammed his minivan into the entrance of Queen of Peace Catholic Church in Florida on Saturday and then got out of the vehicle to set the building on fire. But by Florida standards, it's really not that crazy, guys. I mean, everyone's doing bath salts and driving into churches and setting them on fire. I mean, come on. Isn't that kind of like what you do on a Saturday in Orlando? It's Florida, right? I joke. There were 2 more suspected attacks over the weekend in California. And this one's suspicious. A fire ravaged the San Gabriel mission in the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, a 249-year-old mission. It's probably deemed a California landmark. And then, of course, Bible Gateway Church of God in Fort Worth, Texas was broken into and robbed on the morning of June 11th. So guess what, you guys? How much was this reported by the Alphabet Soup Networks? Our friends over at NBC, ABC, and CBS Nightly News. Out of 270 minutes of coverage, not 1 second, not even one, not one, was spent on these violent anti-Christian attacks. I have a fair question for my atheist, non-believer friends. Do you think it's newsworthy that Christian churches are under attack in America? Would it be newsworthy if any church, if mosques were under attack? Oh, of course. If we were to be honest, we all know that if mosques were being targeted to the level of 4 to 6 over a couple day period, while it coincided with a theme across the country like Christian, anti-American, anti-law enforcement, anti-anything traditional, would it not be newsworthy? Of course it's newsworthy. So you have to ask yourself, if it's newsworthy and it's not getting reported by the news, why is that? Well, can I raise my hand and answer that question? Yeah, Aaron in the back. Because the mainstream media wants to create a narrative that Christians are the worst thing in the world. We are the enemy to be purged off the face of the earth. And so there cannot be any empathy, there cannot be any sympathy, which is why you will never hear the Chinese church, the North Korean concentration camps for Christians, the Nigerian and Somalian brothers and sisters getting hung literally. It's just completely ignored in the corporate media. But if a homosexual gets a paper cut at the business of a Christian, we're going to just shut down the government and we're going to burn our cities. Literally. I shouldn't say literally because literally means literally. So I take literally back. Public edit. But we're getting close to literally, right? Okay, cool. Where were we? Obama says mail-in voting shouldn't be a partisan issue. The minute I read that, I'm like, man, that's so Obama. So smooth. Man, you so smooth, Obama. Mail-in voting shouldn't... Folks just want common sense gun control. Folks, mail-in voting shouldn't be a partisan issue, despite the fact that there's numerous evidence from multiple sources. Look it up, I don't have time. That prove, from a statistical, non-political standpoint, that it's ripe for corruption. It's ripe for tampering. So Obama's slickness, so slick. Love him or hate him, the dude's slick, man. Shouldn't be a partisan issue. Globalists miss Obama. Leftists miss Obama. We all miss Obama. Obama! Jamie Foxx. Obama! Don't we all miss 2008? The Federalist is reporting Oprah joins plot to convince Americans their country is racist. This article sort of highlights why I started counterculture. Oprah is a great example of a cultural figurehead. She's been in my life far too long. It's more important to write the songs of a nation than its laws. But the point that I was trying to present to you at home or wherever you are is that if you can control the culture, you are more powerful than any politician and arguably a corporation because you have the hearts and minds of the people. And that is essentially what the globalists are after and what everyone's after. And it's the reason why I commit my hour and a half every night, or almost every night, to this podcast because I believe the battle is worth fighting and it's so important, even if 2 people listen. So let me explain this really quickly. I'm going to focus on this article a little bit because it's so important. Oprah is working with the New York Times on a television movie multimedia project, probably will end up on Netflix, that is called the 1619 Project. And I don't need to get into the details of what they want to cover, but it's essentially what your liberal college professors, if you went to college past, say, the year 2001, 2002, you were taught, which is critical race theory, which argues that America, its laws, its systems, its institutions are innately racist. If you ever walked the campus of UCLA or USC, let's say in the last 15 years, you've been approached by a poor hygiene person who's trying to convince you that everything about America is racist, everything that you've ever learned about patriotism or the value of America is wrong. And I actually, and I've repented of this, fell victim to this, and actually believed this for a season. I was running around as a Democrat with progressives and members of La Raza in Los Angeles and went to a few parties, formed some relationships, and fortunately didn't go too deep into that world, but went deep enough to learn about Plan de San Diego, and that's essentially wiping out all the white people and how the American Southwest inherently belongs to Mexico and all this craziness. But I say this out of experience, you guys, this is a real thing. I know that a lot of my audience is over the age of 35, and it's crazy to them. If anyone's under the age of 25 knows exactly what I'm talking about. So Oprah wants to take these ideas and they want to make it mainstream. And this is why it's dangerous. This effort to extend this re-education program into popular culture is particularly dangerous because stories have the power to change minds through emotion instead of reason. It's the reason why you have so many well-meaning people going to the streets with their children protesting policies that are helping America, like strong immigration. If we all remember Kids in Cages, right? That was when I really lost a lot of friends on Facebook. Uh, and to prove the point, the article points out the issue of homosexuality and quote unquote abomination marriage. I call it abomination marriage because marriage is between a man and a woman, but it was redefined. So in 2004, polls showed that 60% of Americans opposed same sex marriage privileges, but by 2019, that number shrunk to 31%. So the article points out to Will and Grace, that popular television sitcom that normalized homosexual relationships, and all of this propaganda that was pushing the normalization of homosexuality was the key reason in the culture. The culture battle was won. It wasn't won in Washington. It wasn't won anywhere else. It definitely wasn't won in the churches, with the exception of some of those black churches in California. They get a lot of credit for Prop 8 in California. But the shift in attitude towards marriage happened because the culture waged a war that reached people's emotions. They became emotionally connected to television characters, movie characters. And the article goes on to talk about destroying American heroes in film and on television by overemphasizing their flaws and underemphasizing their contributions will do more to demoralize American patriotism than any statue toppling. It's important to know who's the brainchild behind this. There's always a mind master, and Oprah is the saleswoman, but the mastermind is a woman. Her last name is Hannah Jones, and she's behind this. And her extreme views on race is illustrated in a 1995 letter to Notre Dame University student newspaper, where she wrote that, quote, "The white race is the biggest murderer, rapist, pillager, and thief of the modern world," end quote. I find this all very ironic. I'm assuming she's a black woman. I probably shouldn't but assuming she's a black woman, Oprah's clearly a black woman. Are they not products of America? Have they not been the beneficiaries of this great nation? How dare they express racist views because of the color of your skin, you're subhuman, and America is a bad nation while you enjoy all of its benefits? Typical hypocrisy, right? Moving along, the Patriot Post is reporting California orders closure of indoor activities. Bars, restaurants, wineries, tasting rooms, family entertainment centers, zoos, museums, card rooms, all indoor activities must be suspended. Gyms, churches, malls, personal care services, you have pretty nail, barbershops, salons, non-critical offices in counties on the state's monitoring list have to shut down under Joker orders. I call Gavin Newsom the Joker because my friend sent me a picture that looked a lot like the Joker. The order affects more than 30 counties, which are home to about 80% of California's population. King Newsom. Again, highlighting the question. If that's going to happen, if we're going to destroy the great state of California and we're going to destroy all these families, their lives, their livelihood, their businesses, everything they've worked for, should we not have a serious conversation about how we're assessing the danger of this disease? Absolutely. The Daily Caller is reporting on a gentleman that I met one time, who I thought was a really nice guy for the 10 seconds I talked to him, Nick Cannon. Goes on a racist, anti-Semitic rant, says white people and Jewish people are the true savages, and they're closer to animals. They're acting like animals. Do not expect the mainstream media to trash Nick Cannon for any of those comments because his skin color is black and he's attacking people whose skin color is white. That's totally cool. Flip it around, you got a different story, right, folks? Yeah, you guys catch on quickly, don't you? It's hashtag, it's like, your relationship status, it's complicated. It's like if I was still single and on Facebook, instead of like saying single, I'd be like racist. And then as I learned more about my racism, I'd put it's complicated racism. I'm racist only if. The Western Journal's reporting teachers union holds schools hostage until police are defunded, charter schools shut down. So the teachers union there in Los Angeles is 35,000 members, and they are essentially making demands, saying if we are going to reopen and educate, I was about to say re-educate your kids. That would have actually been a descriptive thing to say. We demand that we get Medicare for all. We demand a millionaire's tax. We demand a wealth tax. We demand that we defund the Los Angeles Police Department. We demand a federal bailout of LA schools. We demand a complete abolition of charter schools. If you thought I was being facetious, I was not. I'm literally being accurate. Those are the demands of the UTLA, the Teachers Union of Los Angeles, and their quote, safe and equitable conditions for starting LAUSD in 2020-2021. I've been to the LA Unified School District, you guys. It's probably a good thing they don't reopen for the sake of the children. I know that my friends in LA who have children don't want to hear that because they didn't sign up to be homeschool parents. But man, it's getting crazy, you guys. So now the political control is coming from all angles, from corporations, from the pop culture, and now from unions. Oh, and I forgot, of course, it wouldn't be a complete progressive demand if it didn't, quote, demand financial support for undocumented students and families. So if you came into this country illegally, you deserve a check. And I'm just going to close on this one because it hits home here in Colorado. Our great governor, Jared Polis, he called me a selfish bastard today, you guys. How should I respond? He said, quote, so if you're a selfish bastard and wearing a mask to protect others isn't enough reason to do so, then maybe protecting yourself is. So if you're a selfish bastard, that's the governor of Colorado, you guys. It's been real. It's been 31 minutes and 39 seconds. That was the top news for July 15th, 2020. If you liked what you heard, text it to your friends. Tell your wives if you're in Utah. Tell your girlfriends if you a player. And if you're a good, well-meaning, good old American, tell your friends and your family. This is where the juice is, you guys. This is one of the last podcasts telling the truth in America. Because Nick Cannon, if you listen to his podcast, clearly you're not. But we're not here to bash podcasts. We're here to promote ours. This was Counterculture with Aaron Lujan. Everything is at aaronlujan.com. Thank you for joining me, you guys. Peace in the Middle East.